Good morning to everyone who managed to get here despite the alcohol from yesterday. I have to, but you didn't have to, so thank you. Let's wait for a few seconds so people come in. By the way, I'm wearing pink because Gosha made me wear pink. It's, you know, real men dress in pink. Yeah, yes, it's true, it's true. Okay, so I'll begin, and whoever joins us, joins us. I'm going to speak today about something which is called the forgetting curve. I'll explain to you what it is about. And I'm talking about changing the way you perceive forgetting or memory with regard to supporting people or training people. And I'll begin with, you know her? I think most people know her all over the world. So she is beginning a little trip, and we're going to go through a little trip, several steps, one place, then another place, then another place, and we'll also meet her along the way as well. So if you don't know, this is Dora, and she has a map, and she travels from one place to another. Okay, to warm everybody up, again, if you're not full of alcohol, maybe coffee, I don't know, I'm going to begin with 2 memory tests, okay? Do you remember, do you know these type of pictures? You need to look at them. I'll give you like a few seconds. Try to remember what you have on this picture. And then I'm going to ask you a question. So, everybody's ready? Yes. Okay, what was under the pineapple? Huh? Let's go back. Okay, there was an orange. Okay, it's not that difficult, okay? Let's go for the next one. This one is a little bit more difficult. Okay, so we have a bunch of pictures here. Take a look. Try to remember everything. Okay? It's number 3. It's actually number 2, but... Okay? You remember? Oh, come on. Okay, so what I'm showing you right now is that perception, understanding, looking for things is not exactly what you always think about, and memory works in a little bit of crazy ways. You want to see how crazy it is? Let's go back to the first picture. Good, very good, very good. Okay, so what happens here is that we're looking at another stage of memory. When we use memory, we use it as a tool. We try to remember things. And we believe that we need it for something specific. Sometimes we retain it, sometimes we don't. And it's a very human thing to do. And I'll give you another example. Let's go even backwards. This was short-term memory. This is long-term memory. Do you remember, some of you are not that far away from university or from school? I'm older. And I am. And I'm asking, if you remember, let's say one of those big exams you needed to study for, okay? So you studied for hours, for days, maybe a week before the exam, and I'll ask you a question. What do you remember from that exam today? It depends on the exam, depends on if you're still dealing with the material. Memory works in a strange way. Sometimes you think you remember something, but actually your brain is doing something else. And this is even funnier, because 1 week after the exam, how much do you think you remembered from the material you studied for? Pretty much. There was a guy called Ebbinghaus. He's a German psychologist. He studied at the end of the 19th century memory and forgetting, actually. It's the same thing at the end of the day. And he said that we forget 50% of what we learn within 1 hour of learning it, which is crazy. And if you look here, within 1 week, we forget 70%. Okay, unless we put it into practice, unless we continually support it and provide additional knowledge. For example, if you know Dora, I think most people know, I have kids, so I unfortunately have to know about Dora. And Dora has this part where she has to go from one place to another place, and there is a map, a little friend over here, and this map explains to Dora what to do. And how does it go? At the first, the map shows Dora several stages, and then it's repeated, and repeated, and repeated. And I want to shoot the TV, but it's still repeated. and this way, the children remember, because you remember when you repeat, for example. There's other ways of remembering. I mean, some people use visual signals to remember, and again, the map is a visual signal. People see the pictures, and they remember. So that's another way of doing things. Sometimes it's a tone. I have an awful memory for digits. If I need to remember my wife's birthday, I have tricks, and I have to. I have tricks to make sure that I can actually do that. Okay, I have all sorts of word games that I play, so I don't forget, because I'm still alive, so I don't forget. and that's one very good proof. So each one of us has a little bit of a different memory, but a lot of these things happen throughout for everyone. Because at the end of the day, memory is a talent, but it's also a skill, and we need to practice it. Some people can do it better, some people can do it not as well. Each one of us has different tricks in order to remember things. But it is a skill. But what happens when we look at the world today? I mean, when my father started studying at the university, there were certain subjects. I think they were using punch card computers. Okay? No, I know, I don't think. I've seen them. It's like amazing. It's an amazing machine. They would go home with this stack of punch cards. And it has maybe 1 byte on it or something like that. And at the end of the day, they had a different world, and they needed to remember things differently. But this world today has a lot more data. And just to understand what we're talking about when I'm saying a lot more data, this is an internet minute in 2016. Look at these numbers. I mean, 1 minute, it's not a day, okay? 1 minute, 2.4 Google searches, okay? 38,000 Instagram posts, okay? Let's look at one specific one. WhatsApp, you use WhatsApp? Okay, some of you do, some of you don't. 30 billion messages per day on WhatsApp. Most of them by 16-year-old teenage girls, it's true. But the rest is by the rest of the world. And just to understand, how many people are there in the world today? What, 7 billion? Okay, divided by that means babies send 15 messages a day. It doesn't make sense, okay? And how can people remember all of that? We don't. Because, especially you guys, I can see a lot of young people. By the way, I really enjoy coming to Poland because there's so many young people who are engaged in these things. It really makes me feel good. I have to say, it's amazing, really. And you're exactly that generation that grew up into this technology. You grew up with this technology. You think technology better than my generation, definitely the generations before that. And you grew up with this amazing amount of knowledge. I won't go into examples, but just so you understand, within 10 years, the type of software or communication capabilities that you have completely changed. Just so you get the story straight, 2006, the iPhone was introduced. 2007, Android, that's just 10 years ago. The world is different, okay? Now, how can we handle all of that? Well, okay, I'll tell you what it says there. So this is interesting. Last year, an article came out by several university professors, and it has a very beautiful name. Google is changing our brains. But actually, it's not Google, it's the internet, or the way we use internet that's changing our brains. Believe it or not, everybody in this room is a cyborg. I know it sounds a little bit strange, but you are cyborgs. All of you are connected. All of you are connected all the time to the internet from your mobile phones, and you can't live without it almost today. Because our brains, and this is just a 10-year thing, our brains are being trained to do something else, something that is not remembering, okay? If you have a question you need to answer and it's difficult, you would go to Google, probably to search it. What these professors showed that it's like a drug. Once you do it for a difficult thing, you would go on doing it for the simple things. I mean, why work? I'm a lazy person. Okay? I really don't like to work. So I make my life easier and I can search for things and find them again in Google. So why should I remember? Okay? And the more you rely on the internet, okay, you will do that even more. It's addictive. It's not addictive in a negative or a positive sense. It's just a way that makes sense to us. Why not? And the interesting thing is, we offload our brain to the internet. It's not just one direction of searching things. We also store our memories and our information on the internet. In other words, we're already something which is connected all the time, and instead of having to remember or to store the knowledge, we just send it out there, and Google or some other cloud system would store it for us. So, internet is completely changing the way that we use our brains. We don't remember the same way, we don't store or learn the same way. It's a very different world today than it was just 10 years ago. That's pretty easy, especially if you have one. A lot of you don't have, you just have boyfriends or girlfriends, but you do have an anniversary date, and that's easy. Okay, fair enough. Most of us can do it, but then, when I was a kid, we remembered phone numbers. Who remembers phone numbers today? Nobody. Why would you? Really? I mean, maybe I remember one, but sometimes I remember my own. And you never do it anymore. And if you're not convinced, this is classic. GPS navigation was introduced to smartphones in 2007. That's just 10 years ago. When was the last time you saw somebody doing this? I'm serious. I mean, I do it. I enjoy doing it. But that's because I'm a little bit sick in the head and I was in the army and we have to do these things, so we learn it and we do it. But honestly, if we were talking, by the way, about Dora, she uses a map, right? She uses a map. When my kids, the younger ones, saw it for the first time, they said, "Why doesn't she use a GPS?" I really didn't know what to answer. But just so you see, it's for my younger kids, it's ingrained. It doesn't even make sense for them to do something which is manual when you can use the phone or a GPS system to do it. So using the brain is now different than what it used to be. Instead of memorizing, which is a skill, and it's an important skill, we are using our brain differently. We try to find information. We try to sift through the information to find what is important for us. Go through it, right? And we need to recognize now, as quickly as possible, what is the most important thing and make use of it. So it's a very different skill set. Instead of trying to remember things and having all in our minds, what we know how to do now is be knowledge experts. What used to be a specific subject in the university, information, knowledge, whatever, most people do it today. KM used to be a business. Now everybody does that because it's part of everyday life. It's a different world and there's a different skill set that is needed. So what I'm trying to say is that we need to look, I'm calling it a paradigm shift, which is really, it's a very strong word. I don't like using paradigm, especially not in marketing, because I think it's overused. But in this specific sense, I think it's a very important word. Why? Because one of the things I have when I sell my own product is, and I'm not going to talk about it, it's that people ask me, do you have testing capabilities in your product? And I say, I do, but it's not relevant. And they say, why do you mean it's not relevant? I told them, because you need to look at the way people use data differently. Stop thinking about having people remember information. Start thinking about how people use information on a daily level. All of you people here create content, create user environments. You try to assist people, whether they are customer, internal people, or not. And up to now, everything was done in a certain way, but you need to start sliding or maybe changing the whole perspective of how it's done. And then people come to me and they say, but is this good or is it bad? because it's important that people remember. I still think it is. But at the end of the day, when you go to a new work environment and you need to study something, you get a week of training, you don't really remember anything. You just say, okay, they taught me. If I really need it, I'll ask them again. Afterwards, they don't have a choice. They're going to have to answer anyhow. So you hit the ground running. You need to start working. You get what you need at that specific second. If you don't need it, you throw it away, which is what we do with all the internet information we get every day through the Facebook. It's important. We might keep it. No, okay, slide. That's it. Okay? I mean, what's it called? Oh, never mind. So is this good or bad? Well, I think that this is a very good answer. A lot of the people I work with, especially the older people, I'm sorry to say, it rubs them the wrong way. They feel angry about it. No, you need to think, you need to think. And then I go and tell them, how many of you complain about the way the education system works? Because you're saying, no, I don't want my kids to study and remember. I want them to learn how to think. On the one hand, you say that. On the other hand, you want them to remember. You're still not exactly sure what you really want in that stage, especially if you come from a generation where remembering was a very important thing. But let's look at this. And this is really, really powerful. If we take 20, 25 years ago, who even knew that you would need an iOS or Android developer? There wasn't anything like that. So you couldn't study. If I went to the university, or maybe I went to school, I couldn't study for this sort of subject, okay? Who would have needed a UX expert, or, things like that? It just did not exist because the world didn't need it. So who actually does this work today? Well, today there's schools, so it's a little bit different. But let's say 10 years ago, when there was no one who actually knew this subject. People who had the skills, they understood programming, they could make a little bit of a shift into a new environment. Everything is based on everything at the end of the day. And they were able to use their skill set and not their memories in order to find a job. And they made a lot of money at the beginning because finding an Android developer was really difficult and it was extremely expensive to get one. It's still not easy, but it's much easier today. So in other words, the people who could use skill sets that are not memorizing and not just knowing, but understanding and knowing how to use things actually have a better chance of moving forward in a world like this. So, this is another question that I have, especially when I get to organizations that need to train people, working people, to the organization. And I ask them, okay, fair enough, it's important that people learn, but for you as a business, what's more important? That they know or that they perform? It's a horrible question, but at the end of the day, we're all money, okay? My time is money, your time is money. For the organization, or if it's your own business, if it's someone else's business, your work time is money. For me, it's more important that my people perform. I want them to know, but at the end of the day, I need to see them do things and give the business back. And that means that I cannot waste my time expecting them to know information that they don't need. Come on, all of you have seen the PDF manuals that you create. Like, a lot of them are really very, very large pages. Some of them are contextual, some of them are not. Who reads them today? Nobody. I'm sorry, but almost nobody reads them. They're important, they should be there, but nobody even takes a look at them. I mean, I've always been one of those people who tried and then make mistakes and fix it. But today, if you're talking about a generation which is ADD, the whole generation, not ADD in their minds, but ADD in the way they see information, for them, if you don't have something, a quick answer right now, which is what I need, and I need, not everybody else, just for me, I don't need it. I want to perform. I don't have time to start finding the right things that I need within all that database of knowledge. So I think that in onboarding, which is bringing new customers into your product or new users into your product, in training, in helping people to use things, we need to see that, or to provide people with information that they need here and now, because they're, you know the expression, hit the ground running? It means that you jump off a cliff, or from somewhere, but you don't stand, wait, and then start running. You jump and automatically start a run. okay? Because you don't have a choice. This is what happens to you when you go into business, okay? You're a new employee. Nobody has the time to wait for you anymore. You will not stay there for 20 years like people used to. You'll be there 5 years, the one to make the best of you, okay? So you need to hit the ground running, which means you need to get what you need when you need it and not afterwards. It needs to be, the information you get needs to be digestible. We don't have time to, for you to start sifting through new information. It needs to be small, something that they can eat very, very quickly in small bites. It needs to be relevant, and it needs to entertain them, because remember when I said that trying to remember things is difficult? If you give people tools that entertain them, they remember it. Okay, I imagine some of what you will remember from today is more of my jokes than some of the material or the overall understanding, but my jokes, okay? It needs to be, and this is really, really important, I call it supportive training instead of instructive training. This means something that is ongoing, not just something that is at the beginning and expecting people to remember it and then launch them out, but something that is all the time there and helps them. And it needs to be self-paced and always available. Okay, information that helps people. Okay? And I can't even explain to you how important this is. And I want you to take a very strong look at metrics, because this is something that you, I believe, will all need to learn over the next couple of years. Analytics, metrics, is going to be a central part in every content creation, management, user experience things that you are going to do. How people interact with the product, how many do that, how many do certain things. There are different products out there that sort of follow user behavior, give you metrics on how they've done. This is something you have to be aware of in your business, and if you haven't, start looking into this. And doing, okay? There's a difference between teaching and training. It's a very big difference. If you don't know it, I'll give you a small example. I don't know if anyone ever here has fired a rifle, but you take a rifle and you read about it, you don't know how to shoot it. Okay? You don't know how to use it, because you will never feel that when you hold a rifle, you get this backlash from it. Until you do something, you can't. Will any of you be happy to fly with a pilot who's never actually used you know, how do you call a flight simulator? He just read about flying and now he knows how to do it, right? You'll all feel very safe about it. Probably not. That's why training is also important. That means doing things helps you to remember. It works on different registries in your mind. So, since technology has changed us, what I'm trying to say here is that we need to look at the technological changes in the products that we can use that are out there. A good example, let's say, it's not my product, but I use it in marketing, is a product like Hotjar, which follows the user behavior on the website. And I learn how to, I see what people understand and what they don't understand, what they click and what they don't click, and then I can change my user interface or my content to allow them to get where I want in the funnel, okay? There's technology out there, and you as people who create content, who manage content, at the end of the day, a lot of you people come to you and they say, can you help us make it better? You're solution people. It's not just content creation. And you should be aware of the technological capabilities that are out there that can help you. Because if technology changed the way we think, then we should use technology to help us in providing them with that content. And I'm going to go over just a few things that are out there you should be aware of. I'll begin with the buzzwords. It's not just buzzwords, but it's really out there. If we're talking, let's begin with rich content, video. Honestly today, if I need to learn how to do something, even if it's software or fixing my car, I go on YouTube and learn how to do it. And most people do it today, okay? People don't read the manual, they go to YouTube and they see how it's done. You should be aware of that. You should know how to create video content, rich content for your users. It also works on different registries. They see it. It helps them to understand. This is the next stage, augmented and virtual reality, where augmented is something that you have on top of something, and virtual is a completely new world. And just like I mentioned before, a flight simulator would be virtual. Let's say in-product support would be a little bit more augmented. But the idea is that you need to look at technologies that sit on top of the product and are always available to your users. So they don't have to remember, but can access it whenever they want. Okay? Contextual. I can't even explain to you how that is important. If you don't know it, if you haven't gone there, it's the end of the day, it's so important. Additional tooltips inside the product. Making sure that when the user needs something, it's there for them, and not information that's not relevant for them. They can't spare the time to start looking for information somewhere else. They need to have that information available for them when they need it, exactly at that time, because otherwise they spend too much time, and nobody wants to spend time anymore. We just don't have it. And micro, okay? I don't want to read a full manual. I just want to know how to do something special that I want inside the product, something specific. I really don't need the rest of it. You will see even in video content today, they're making it smaller and smaller bites, specific to what people need. Similarly with the content that you provide to support. Just what people need and not more than that. They don't want that. They just are not going to listen. And if you give too much information, they might stop along the way and not reach the important stuff, which is at the end. Okay? Personalize. Now, this would be the next generation, and measurement and big data. These are the next generation of things that will come on. Personalized content, which means, let's say, by user type. Okay? So a manager needs to look at different information. So that's one level. Okay? But then you have specific information. Let's say someone has already seen some information. You don't want them to gain it again and again and again. They'll just get fed up. Okay? And also, especially in a world where all the emails that you get, all of the Facebook that you get, remember, hello Oded, good morning. It's sunny today where you are. Google tells me that there's a lot of traffic around my area. And I'm used to it. Now, I think it's funny, okay, on a personal level. But the world is going into that direction of personalized content. So people expect also the support and the training that they get to be personalized. Why? Because people enjoy having something, and the moment you enjoy having something, you get used to it. It's very easy to get used to the good things, okay? And going back to older ways of doing things is difficult for people. They would expect you to give you personal content later on. And as I mentioned, systems that learn, system that can calculate user behavior, system that can help you to understand how people see the content and learn from that to create better content onwards. I haven't spoken about all the products. You can go out, search if you want. I can explain some products later on and help you to do it. Some of them are actually out here, and you can speak with them, some of the vendors outside. I would like to show you one little thing, though, before I end. And that is sort of do a recap of what we spoke about today. Remember we did memory tests? Do you remember? It was so long ago. But do you see how memory works? You already sort of forgot. I mean, you remember, but it's already outside of your mind because you don't need it right now. You pushed it aside. And then we talked about the changing world of data and internet. That's a little bit closer, so we still remember it. And then a paradigm shift in learning. And then I spoke about technologies because I used all of this information in a certain stage. You said to yourselves, okay, now I need it. It's important for this moment. I won't need it afterwards, and I'll forget it. Maybe I'll need it one day. So there's only one thing I ask of you, is that please, 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 don't forget what I told you today. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Oded. You can keep it, yeah. So guys, do you have questions to Oded?
Right?
He's already gone? Hey, come back here. Oded, we need you here. No? No questions? No questions? Come on. Can you, Oded, questions? Yeah, we have some questions. Do we have any questions?
I'll just tell him. Come on. I want you to come also. So you won't feel bad. He's going to be after me, and he's a good guy, really. Okay, what can I answer? Okay. Thank you very much. Cheers. Oh, yes. 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 Just one little quick question. Yes. I know that we can get the
Yeah, sorry. I got too excited. I forgot to wait for the microphone. No, you talked about metrics. It was discussed yesterday, and I also believe in them. We believe in them. But we often get stuck on finding out what is the right metric. And one of our problems has been we have for a long time not had our things on a server where we could access certain data. Now we have it on a server. We can start doing like page hits and all that kind of stuff. But is there, I know everything is personal, it's like what is important for us, but is there a place to start learning what are the good questions to ask? Because we often, anytime somebody comes up with a question, oh, let's measure this, somebody says, oh, that's not really valid, or that's a vanity thing, or whatever.
I think the best thing to always start with is your own intuition. Okay? Because at the end of the day, we're all people. If you work with a group of people, that means you have a lot of people in your organization. Take everyone together and ask them what's important and try to see among them what everyone says, okay? That's already good. And don't just use the people who create the content or the developers. Take the secretary. Take someone who will not be involved in creation of the product itself. If you can get children or someone from the outside, bring them as well. And the more information you get, the more you can collect, and then start from there. The second thing you can do is simply ask open questions for customers. You'd be amazed. They really want to answer. They feel that somebody listens to them. So you can send out an email and say, what would you like to see? What would you like to have? What didn't you like? Okay, you'd actually get quite a few answers, and you can start from there. So that's a good way to start. So these two things. The next thing you need to do is, it's not so much about just generally asking what people want, but the question is what you want to get. Okay, which is the other side of it. That means at the end of the day, if you're a business, you want to sell. So maybe you want people to get to a certain place. Try to see, even do A/B testing. Okay, try to do it in two different ways if you don't know what it's like, and see which one drove more people to a certain direction. There's different ways of doing it, and we can go and sit and show examples. We just don't have enough time, but these are good places to start. Okay.
Hello, thank you for a very good presentation. So I admit I haven't seen it from the very beginning because I was slightly late, sorry about that.
The beginning was actually better.
Well, I'll watch the recording after the conference. But I would like to ask a question about tooltips. Actually, you mentioned that users don't want to leave the application to learn, to get information. So I've been wondering what the optimized tooltip content looks like to you. How much information do users want inside the application, and for what information they should be sent to the help, to the other sources of learning?
Okay, one, there's no clear answer about that because it depends on what we're pointing at, okay? There's different ways of doing it. There's ways of doing it in my product, there's ways of doing it in development, there's different ways of doing it. But at the end of the day, if it's too long, I mean, if it's more than 2 sentences, nobody reads it anyhow, they lose it, okay? So it needs to explain to people in very, very short, just like Twitter. You need to make it very small, very concise, and put that information out there. If you use the same logic, it should probably work for you as well. But you need to explain to people at least one thing. This is what this is what it does, this is what it will get you to do. You can do that in 140 characters if you want.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? I can go now?
Oh, that is fun. Thank you.